TCSO, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. So how do employers actually handle this situation? We know that Nedbank has now confirmed that some of its staff are currently under self-isolation and are being monitored.
Hi. So the first thing that employers should understand, especially from a South African perspective, is that they have an obligation to create a safe working environment. And in that same breath, employers need to understand that employees have a right to fair labor practices. So for the example that's been happening with Nedbank, with the employees that have decided to self-isolate, what Nedbank has done, it has given these employees permission to self-isolate and stay at home in order to fulfill its obligation to create a safe working environment for its employees.
So for other companies who might believe that some people are overreacting because they simply have flu-like symptoms, what do they consider going into this?
They should consider if the employee's fear is a reasonable fear. So, for example, if the employee traveled to an affected coronavirus area or a high-risk coronavirus area, or if they've been in contact with someone who has traveled to those places, then they should consider the employee's fear. I think it's quite a reasonable fear if they've been in contact with someone or if they've been to those areas. And I think a safe, reasonable precaution that employers can take is to allow employees to self-isolate.
Yeah. And what about the responsibility of employers when it comes to treatment of people should they show symptoms? Do they have any obligation, for instance, if people don't have medical aid to cover the costs?
No, but what employer can do, firstly, is in terms of the Employment Equity Act, medical testing by an employer is prohibited unless the facts justify the medical testing. So if the facts justify the medical testing, then what the employer can do is, for example, ask the employee to go and get a medical certificate from a doctor to get confirmation that the employee is in a healthy or is healthy enough to be able to work. So employers don't have an obligation to provide medical assistance to employees, but what they can do is provide that employee with that freedom to go get the required medical assistance.
Yeah, and of course, the other issue would be taking days off and leave for tests to be conducted. How would that work in this instance?
It would work, like I said, if there's reasonable circumstances that justify an employee taking leave to go and get tested. Because remember, an employer has an obligation to create a safe working environment. So if there's a risk that an employee might have the virus, then it would be in the employer and the other employee's best interest for the employer to give the affected or potentially affected employee time off to get medical testing.
All right, TCSO, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate the insight.